The room went quiet the second Mr. Alvarez slid the last paper across the long walnut table. The Banks family crest, a golden bee inside a circle, glowed from the silver cufflinks on my mother-in-law's wrists as she reached for the document like it belonged to her. A row of framed degrees watched us from the wall. The city traffic hummed somewhere below the 13th floor window. I could hear my own breath. Then the attorney said the sentence that made the air change. "Mrs. Maya Okafor Banks," he said, looking straight at me, not at my husband, not at his people. "The total assets transferring to you as sole beneficiary are valued at $80 million. The pen slipped from my fingers and tapped the glass table. 80 million. The number moved through the room like thunder. Auntie Denise, who had warned me I was not yet Banks enough, blinked hard. Cousin Nia stopped chewing her gum. My mother-in-law, Madame Patricia Banks, did not blink at all. She froze, her red lipstick like a line cut into stone. 80 what? She asked, soft. Mr. Alvarez didn't repeat himself. He slid another sheet forward, a summary with lines of numbers, ships and warehouses, cash accounts and apartments, companies I had never heard about but suddenly owned. The paper had my grandfather's name on it, the man our family barely spoke about, the man who left the village in Ghana with one suitcase and built a cocoa export business that stretched from Tema to Savannah, from Accra to Atlanta. The man who had sent me a quiet scholarship when I got into nursing school, then disappeared again. I could feel every eye in the room move to me, then to Jordan, my husband. He was handsome in that clean, careful way. Smooth skin, sharp navy suit, the kind smile that first made me trust him. He reached for my hand under the table, but my palms were cold and my heart was beating too loud to feel anything. Patricia's smile returned in pieces. "Well," she said, voice bright again, "praise God for good news." She turned that smile on me the way one turns a lamp, controlled and direct. "Maya dear, now that the Lord has lifted you, we will handle it with wisdom. Family business is family business. We'll need to fold this into the Banks family office immediately, just to be safe." Her words were honey laid on a trap. I stared at her, then at the thick leather folder she kept beside her like a shield. The prenup was in there, the one they made me sign 2 days before the wedding, the one Jordan told me was just a formality, the one Patricia called common sense. I had cried in a hotel bathroom while the makeup artist knocked on the door. I signed anyway. Love can be a fog. It makes the ground you're standing on look like a cloud. Now, in this office that smelled like lemon polish and old money, the fog lifted. I saw everything. "Mrs. Banks," Mr. Alvarez said, still calm, "this inheritance goes to Maya alone. The trust's language is clear. It does not fall under the Banks family office. It does not touch the prenup." Auntie Denise sat up straight. "Excuse me. Her grandfather's lawyers set it up that way," he continued. "It is separate from any marital agreement. Ironclad." Silence again. A church kind of silence. The kind you feel in your bones. Patricia's smile thinned into something else. She looked at Jordan, then back to me. "Of course," she said. "Of course. We only want what is best for the family." My family motto from my father's side is older. If you want to know a road, ask those who have walked it. That road taught me 2 things. First, the person who calls you dear while reaching for your plate is often counting your pieces. Second, a quiet girl is still a river, and rivers carve rock. I looked down at the paper again. $80 million. Not a dream, not a rumor. Real. Heavy. Like a drumbeat. And just like that, the room broke into small noises. Chair legs scraped. Cousin Nia's gum popped again. Auntie Denise leaned over to whisper, and the whisper had the sharp, sour smell of a lemon sucked too fast. Patricia lifted the leather folder and placed it neatly in front of her, both palms resting on it as if it were a sleeping animal she did not trust. Mr. Alvarez cleared his throat. "There is one more envelope," he said. "A personal letter from your grandfather. He asked that I give it to you today." He slid a cream envelope toward me, the kind with thick edges that feels like a wedding invitation. My name was written by hand. Maya. in a careful, familiar script I had not seen since I was 12 years old, when a postcard came from Abidjan with a palm tree drawn in the corner and a single sentence: "Work hard in the daylight. The night will not always be kind." My fingers shook. I did not open the letter yet. I looked up and saw Patricia watching me, the way hunters watch lines in bushes. I took a breath and looked past her, through the window and out across Atlanta. The city heat blurred the horizon. Somewhere far away, a siren wailed, then faded. I thought of my mother, who came to this country as a home nurse and taught me to braid hair with steady hands. I thought of my father, who ran a small store and always paused closing time to pray. I thought of Jordan and his soft voice, and the way money made some people's voices go hard. Then the story's road ran backwards, fast. I remembered the day I met Jordan by the food truck outside the clinic. He laughed at my order, half rice, half jollof, extra plantain, and said that told him everything he needed to know. We talked until the sun found our necks. He told me his family built things, homes, hotels, a church. He told me he loved the way I looked at people when they were speaking, not above them. He told me I was the first girl he wanted to bring to Sunday dinner. Sunday dinner was a theater. Patricia in pearls, the table laid like a magazine cover, the cousins arriving with designer perfume and stories of deals. I brought moi moi in a foil pan, because my mother taught me never to go empty-handed. They called my food cute. The pastor spoke a blessing. They called me nurse girl when they thought I couldn't hear. I told myself not to mind. People test the new pot to see if it leaks. When Jordan proposed, Patricia clapped first and longest. Then the lawyers appeared with their briefcases. "Just a formality," Jordan said again, eyes soft. "My family had a scare years ago. They protect everything now." We sat in his mother's study under a portrait of her late husband. The air smelled like sandalwood and old paper. The lawyer spoke for an hour. The words swam: premarital assets, appreciation, separate property, waiver of spousal support. I felt small and big at the same time, like a child standing inside a cathedral. "My daughter," Patricia said, "this paper keeps peace. You came from little. We came from much. We love you, but wisdom must lead love." I signed. I told myself I was signing peace, not paper. The wedding danced like a movie, kente and lace, violins and talking drums, my father crying with both hands raised, Jordan's smile like a promise. Then married life came with its own weather. Some days were good. Coffee on the balcony, Jordan asking about my night shifts. Some days were storms, small comments that cut, budget talks with Patricia advising, a new rule every month about how money in a marriage should move. I sent money home to my parents in small envelopes and kept my head down. Quiet girls can be rivers. Rivers learn to wait. Now here we were, and the number had landed. I picked up my grandfather's envelope and slid a finger under the seal. The paper opened with a soft sound. Inside was a single page, the same careful hand. My eyes caught the first line. "My child, I leave you what I built so your children will not beg. But I leave you something stronger than money. Freedom with a boundary." I read the paragraph once, then again, slower. There was a condition, not the kind that takes away, but the kind that tests. The room pressed in. Patricia shifted. Jordan squeezed my hand, finally finding my fingers. The lawyer folded his hands and waited. I lifted my head to speak, but Patricia was faster. She pulled the thick leather folder close and opened it with a snap. The prenup gleamed up at us, neat as a sword. She tapped a line I had not seen before, a clause buried in the middle like a thorn in sweet fruit. "Since we are all sharing good news," she said, voice bright as glass, "there is one item we should revisit, dear. The Banks family is always prepared." Her eyes slid to Jordan, then back to me. "Tell her," she said to her son, gentle and deadly, "it's time." Jordan let go of my hand. He cleared his throat and looked at the paper, not at me. "Maya," he said, voice low, "there's something I never told you about that prenup." Jordan's voice trembled. "There's a page in the prenup my mum's lawyer added at the end. It's called Addendum C. It says if either spouse gets a significant asset, we present a plan to the bank's trustees for how it'll be managed. They expected to be in the room for decisions. I stared at him. Expected or required? He swallowed. It says expected as a condition of marital harmony. It's not money law. It's family law. Patricia's smile didn't move. Words matter, Maya. Harmony matters. Your family. Mr. Alvarez slid his glasses higher. Addendum C is not enforceable over a separate inheritance held in trust, he said, calm as rain. It is a social lever, not a legal one. Patricia tilted her head. Social levers move people faster than court orders, Counselor. She lifted a fresh document from her leather folder. Heavy paper, gold letterhead. This is a letter of direction, she said smoothly. Simple. It allows the bank's family office to temporarily house your new assets under our umbrella for 12 months. We'll report to you. You'll see every line. We've done this for decades. Keeps wolves away. Which wolves? I asked. The world, she said, widening her hands. Taxes, scammers, cousins you've never met. You're a nurse, dear. You save lives. Let professionals save your money. The letter's first line faced me like a bright, easy road, for safekeeping and unified oversight. My fingers itched. My mind ran back to the envelope in my lap, freedom with a boundary. I unfolded my grandfather's letter and read, below the first paragraph, for 1 year after you receive this, do not hand control of the estate to your spouse's family, or any company they own. If you do, the trust will move to the secondary plan, the clinics. Do not sign anything in a hurry. Rivers that rush lose their banks. Beneath the lines, his pen made a small river shape, a curve and a bend. Is there a problem? Patricia asked lightly. I looked up. My grandfather gave me a rule, I said. For 1 year, no one from my husband's family can control this money. If I break it, the whole thing goes to a set of clinics. Clinics? Auntie Denise barked a laugh. How noble! Patricia didn't laugh. Her eyes cooled by 10 degrees. We're not asking for control, she said. We're offering custody. It's not the same. Mr. Alvarez shook his head. Mrs. Banks, the trust is designed to prevent exactly that move. It's a spendthrift trust with a protector. The language is very specific. Spendthrift? Cousin Nia wrinkled her nose. Sounds poor. It means no one can grab the money, Mr. Alvarez said gently. Not creditors, not in-laws, not even the trustee, unless the beneficiary, Maya, directs allowed actions. Patricia slid the letter of direction closer anyway. Sign, and we will protect you. I ran my thumb along my grandfather's bend of ink. My heart was loud, but my head cleared. I remembered a breakfast 2 weeks before the wedding. Patricia had invited me alone. Just us, sunlight across white marble, a fruit bowl like a painting. She had smiled and handed me a stack of papers wrapped in a silk ribbon. Thank you notes, she'd said. Vendors, cupcakes, band. Sign your name at the bottom so we can send them out. The paper on top had tiny flowers around the edge. The one under it had no flowers at all, and asked for my permission to coordinate finances for the event. I had signed then, too trusting, too eager to be easy. Now I placed the letter of direction back on the table without touching it. I won't sign today. Jordan exhaled like he had been holding his breath for a year. Relief and fear wrestled in his face. Mum, he said softly, we can give her time. Patricia's smile cracked. Time is expensive. Mr. Alvarez spoke again. Maya, your grandfather also left practical steps. He named me interim trustee for 60 days. After that, you choose a permanent protector. During the 60 days, any attempt by outside parties to direct transfers triggers a freeze. Freeze? Auntie Denise repeated. Yes, Mr. Alvarez said. A hold. The account stops moving until Maya confirms the plan. Patricia's fingers drummed once on the leather. Then she stilled them. Then let's be practical, she said. If not the family office, who will help? You work nights. This is not small. I looked out the window, down at the city's grid. When I was a child, my mother would braid my hair and tell me stories. A rich man who forgot his mother's name when his pockets got big. A girl who hid gold coins in clay pots, not to hoard, but to plant a school when she was grown. Your name is the first house you own, my mother would say. Build its walls with choices. I folded the letter carefully and slipped it back into its envelope. I will build, I said. Slowly. Patricia's eyes softened like velvet. Slow is fine, she said, but storms do not wait. Jordan? He looked torn in two. Mom, let's give it a week. A buzz at the door saved him. Mr. Alvarez's assistant, a young man with close-cut hair and a tie too tight, stepped in, cheeks flushed. I'm so sorry to interrupt, he said, voice breathless, but the trust security system just flagged an attempted transfer request from a new device. It tried to move $5 million from the Ghana account to an entity called Banks Family Office Holdings, LLC. We blocked it automatically and triggered a 90-day lock pending confirmation from the beneficiary. The room changed shape. Air thinned. Heat rose. Patricia didn't blink. That is absurd, she said, each word a square. We would never... The assistant held up a printout. IP address is from this building. Jordan's chair scraped. What? Not from this room, the assistant added quickly. From the floor below, suite 1206. Patricia's jaw flexed. The family office is on 1206, Cousin Naya said, too fast. No one authorized that, Patricia said, voice now ablade. If someone used our name... She stopped. Her eyes cut to Jordan, then to me. Confusion creates stories. Stories create courts. We don't want courts. Mr. Alvarez nodded. The lock is now live. For 90 days, no money in or out without Maya's voice and the protector's approval. Maya, the trust also requires you to name a protector within 24 hours of a breach. Protector, I repeated. A person you trust, he said. Not family by marriage. Someone to stand beside you when others push. My mind scattered like beads on a floor. My mother's face rose first. But she would say, choose someone who knows this table's language. Pastor Elijah. He knew souls, not numbers. My best friend, Tasha. She had sense and a spine made of prayer, but she had 2 jobs and a baby. I looked at Mr. Alvarez. He could be interim, but the letter wanted me to decide. My grandfather was asking me to pick my bank. Patricia's voice softened again, careful, coaxing. Choose me, dear. Choose the mother you married into. Let me stand with you. Jordan stared at his hands. Maya, he said quietly, you know my mom will fight for us. I looked at my husband, and behind him, all the rooms I had entered to be with him. The private school fundraiser where no one took a second plate, the church balcony where money picked the seats, the kitchen where I sliced onions, while Patricia told me which knives last longer. Love is real, I thought, but sometimes love walks with pride, and pride does not share plates. Mr. Alvarez slid a simple form toward me. Write the name and sign. I'll file it in 10 minutes. A soft ping sounded from the assistant's phone. He glanced down and blanched. There's more, he whispered. A second attempt. Same amount, different route. It used a saved contact, Jordan Banks. Every eye swung to my husband. Jordan went pale. I didn't do that, he said, hands up. I swear. I never had the login. Mom? Patricia stood very still. Our office wouldn't use a saved contact, she said tightly. We use secure channels. Mom, Jordan said, voice breaking now. Tell them you didn't. Her silence spoke first. I felt my heartbeat leave my chest and thud against the table, not because of the money, but because the ground under my marriage had shifted and I could feel the crack. Maya, Mr. Alvarez said gently, we have 12 minutes before the system requires a protector or the lock deepens. If it deepens, you will not be able to access $1 for 3 months, even for your parents' medicine, even for your rent, if there is a mistake. Choose. Patricia's smile had vanished. In its place was steel. If you pick an outsider, she said softly, don't be surprised when outsiders celebrate your fall. I reached for the pen. The paper waited. Names ran through my head like train cars. My grandfather's river shape glowed in my mind. Freedom with a boundary. I pressed the pen down, and from the hallway came a sharp, quick knock. The door opened, and a woman stepped in wearing a navy dress and braids pinned like a crown. She looked straight at me, not at the money, not at the family, and spoke my full name the way only someone from home can. "Maya Adwoa," she said. "Your grandfather told me to come if trouble started. My name is Ama Mensa. I'm the protector he chose if you freeze." Mr. Alvarez stood. Patricia did not move. Jordan whispered my name like a prayer. Ama held out a small, worn leather notebook. On the first page, in my grandfather's careful hand, was a single line. "If the river rises, trust the woman who knows how to cross." I lifted my pen to sign, then Ama flipped the notebook to a folded receipt tucked in the back. It was dated last week. It showed a wire sent from a joint account with my name on it to Banks Family Office Holdings for advisory retainer. The sender's signature was mine. The paper in front of me felt heavier than a stone. My own signature stared back at me, bold black ink against a pale page. The receipt showed a wire transfer I did not remember authorizing. $5 million sent from an account with my name on it, straight to Banks Family Office Holdings. The silence in the room was so thick it pressed on my skin like humidity in the middle of July. Patricia leaned back in her chair with the poise of a queen watching pawns fall. "Well, dear," she said softly, "it looks like you've already entrusted us once. Perhaps your grandfather's letter isn't as binding as you think." Her voice was silk, but the words were knives. I shook my head slowly. "I never signed this. I don't even know this account existed." Jordan's face drained of color. "Maya, wait. You're saying someone forged your signature?" "I'm saying I didn't touch this," I said firmly. "I don't sign million-dollar wires between night shifts at the hospital." Mr. Alvarez stepped forward, his hand steady as stone. "This," he said, tapping the receipt, "is fraud. And fraud is punishable, even within families." Patricia gave a small, brittle laugh. "Fraud? Counselor, please. Families share accounts all the time. It is common for wives not to recall every paper they sign when planning weddings, funerals, holidays." Her voice trailed off, as if inviting everyone in the room to nod. No one did. Auntie Denise coughed. Cousin Nia chewed her gum louder, her eyes darting between faces like she was watching a soap opera in real time. Ama, the stranger who had walked in with my grandfather's notebook, placed the worn leather book gently on the table. "Maya," she said, her voice firm, carrying the rhythm of someone used to giving instructions that people followed. "Your grandfather prepared me for this. He knew tricks would come. Look closely at the receipt. The ink is printed. It is not pen. This is a copy of your signature cut and pasted." I leaned closer. Ama was right. The line of my name lacked the pressure dips of a real pen. It was too smooth, too uniform. Patricia's face hardened, her mask slipping for the first time. "This proves nothing," she snapped. "It proves everything," Ama replied calmly. She turned to me. "Your grandfather said rivers attract crocodiles when they grow wide. That is why he built you a dam, me. If you sign me in as your protector, I can challenge this document immediately. Without a protector, the crocs will keep circling." Jordan finally spoke again, his voice breaking like a boy's. "Mom, please, tell me you didn't do this." Patricia's eyes stayed on me, ignoring her son entirely. "Jordan," she said sharply, "not now." That silence between them, the kind that grows when a son realizes his mother has been playing a longer game than his marriage, split the room in half. I picked up the pen again. My hands shook, but not from fear, from fury. The same fury I remembered when I was 16 and a bank clerk called my mother the help while she wore her nurse's scrubs, even though she had worked longer hours than anyone else in that line. The same fury when Jordan's cousins whispered that I married him for his name, while none of them knew about the scholarships I turned down, the shifts I picked up, the sacrifices my parents made so I could even stand in this city. I steadied the pen. "Ama Mensa," I said clearly. "I name you Protector." The The sound of my pen scratching across the paper was the only noise in the room. When I lifted it, a strange calm washed over me, like a door had just shut and locked behind me. Amma nodded once. "Good," she said. "Now the crocodiles can't cross without a fight." Patricia's jaw tightened. "You've made a very foolish move, dear," she said. "Do you know how many lawyers we keep on retainer? Do you know how many courts will laugh at a nobody nurse trying to dictate to the Banks family?" Amma's lips curved in a faint smile. "Your courts will not matter. The trust is international. It doesn't bow to Atlanta or Accra or even Washington. It bows to its own language, and the language favors her." Mr. Alvarez added, "The lock is secure now. The attempted fraud strengthens our case. Any more attempts will be reported to the trustees directly." Jordan finally looked at me, his eyes wet. "Maya," he whispered, "I swear I didn't know about this. I love you. Please believe me." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to cling to the laughter we shared over cheap food trucks and the mornings he made me tea after a night shift. But love doesn't erase evidence. It doesn't erase silence. And silence was what Jordan had given me in that room, sitting between his mother's steel and my shaking hands. Amma broke the quiet. "Maya, we need to leave this room, now. Your grandfather instructed me never to negotiate with crocodiles in their water." Patricia leaned forward. "You walk out and you'll never step back in. You'll regret that day, dear. Rivers that cut too deep flood their own banks." I gathered the envelope with my grandfather's letter, the receipt, and Amma's notebook. My legs felt weak, but I stood. Amma rose beside me, steady as a pillar. Mr. Alvarez gathered his files. Jordan half rose from his chair. "Maya, please, don't leave like this. Talk to me. Let me explain." "Explain outside this room," I said coldly, "away from the people who forged my name." For the first time in her life, Patricia Banks had no reply, only silence and a stare sharp enough to cut. We left the building into the heavy Atlanta air, the sun a white coin above us. I felt lightheaded, like the world was tilting. Amma kept her pace steady, guiding me toward the parking lot. Mr. Alvarez followed, murmuring about next steps. My thoughts ran wild. Who had actually forged my name? Patricia? One of her cousins, or God forbid, Jordan himself? The receipt was dated last week. Last week I had been working 3 double shifts. I barely slept, barely ate. Someone had used that exhaustion against me. I clenched my fists. "Amma," I said, "why did my grandfather trust you?" She glanced at me, her eyes steady. "Because I carried water for him when no one else would. I was a junior accountant at his company. When others pocketed money, I refused. He called me River Girl. He told me one day I'd protect the real river, his bloodline." I swallowed hard. My grandfather, the man I barely knew, had thought that far ahead, had chosen me, had chosen her. And now, $80 million, and maybe my marriage, sat in the middle of it all. We reached Mr. Alvarez's car. He opened the door for me. "Maya, you'll need to move fast," he said. "Fraud attempts mean Patricia will not stop. Amma can file a report with the trust. That will trigger an investigation. It will expose whoever tried to use your name." "And Jordan?" I asked, my voice low. "That," Alvarez said gently, "is a different investigation." I sank into the seat, clutching the envelope to my chest. The words of my grandfather's letter echoed in my head. Freedom with a boundary. But boundaries cut both ways. They keep wolves out, and sometimes people you love. As the car pulled away, I glanced out the window and saw Jordan standing in the doorway of the building. His hands were in his pockets, his face pale. Patricia stood behind him, her hand on his shoulder, whispering something into his ear. He didn't move. He didn't chase me. The image seared into me like a brand. That night, in the quiet of my small apartment, I unfolded the letter again. Amma sat across from me, patient, while Mr. Alvarez took a call. The envelope still smelled faintly of dust and cocoa beans. I read the last lines of my grandfather's letter again and again. "Do not trust rivers that do not know your name. Choose protectors who remind you of your mother's kitchen, not your in-laws' dining hall. Money is a seed. Plant it where you can return to shade. My eyes blurred with tears. My mother's kitchen, the smell of fried plantain, the sound of her humming hymns as she packed food into bowls for neighbors who had less, the warmth of my father's prayer before meals. That was my real inheritance, even before the money. I wiped my eyes. "Amma," I whispered, "how do I fight Patricia Banks?" She leaned forward. Not with anger. With records. With patience. Crocodiles thrash. Rivers flow. We will gather proof. We will show the trust. And we will make them regret forcing you to sign that prenup. Her voice carried no doubt. And for the first time since the number 80 million crashed into my life, I felt something stronger than fear. I felt resolve. But as I tried to sleep later that night, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number lit up the screen. "You think you're safe with Amma? Rivers flood, Maya. Don't forget who your husband belongs to." My blood ran cold, and when I looked closer, I saw the text came from a number saved under Jordan's name. But I knew. Jordan never wrote like that. Someone else was using his phone. Or worse, someone was using his name. And if they could forge my signature, what else could they do? The text burned on my phone screen, the words cutting deeper than the glow of the midnight light. "You think you're safe with Amma. Rivers flood, Maya. Don't forget who your husband belongs to." I sat frozen on the edge of my bed, the hum of the ceiling fan the only sound in the small room. My fingers trembled as I reread the message. It wasn't Jordan's voice. Not the man who once whispered prayers with me when my father had surgery. Not the man who walked with me in the rain just so my hair wouldn't frizz before work. This was Patricia's hand, or someone she sent. Amma leaned against the doorframe, her arms folded. She had insisted on staying the night in my guest room for security, and now she watched me with steady eyes. "Show me," she said. I turned the screen toward her. She read once, then twice, her jaw tightening. "This is intimidation," she said simply. "Your grandfather predicted this too. He said once the money comes, they'll try to make you doubt yourself, doubt your marriage. They'll use every soft place in your heart as a weapon." My chest ached. But if Jordan didn't send this, then who did? Amma stepped closer. "That's the question we'll answer. But first, we protect your mind. Do not reply. Do not call. Crocodiles want you thrashing in the water. Stay still." I nodded, but sleep didn't come that night. Every creak in the building sounded like footsteps. Every vibration of my phone made me jolt. I thought of Jordan, wondering if he even knew his phone was being used against me. The next morning, I dragged myself to the clinic. Patients needed their medication. The world didn't stop for family wars, but even there the storm followed me. Halfway through my shift, the head nurse pulled me aside, her brow furrowed. "Maya," she said quietly, "we've had a complaint. A caller claimed you've been misusing patient information. They mentioned fraud, said you weren't trustworthy with records." I blinked. "What? That's impossible. I've never—" "I know," she said quickly. "I trust you, but administration has to investigate. They'll review your files." The room swayed around me. Fraud. The exact word Patricia had tried to throw onto me last night. I forced a deep breath. "Do you know who made the call?" The nurse shook her head. "Anonymous, but it came from a private number." My hands clenched at my sides. Patricia was moving fast, pulling every lever she could. If she couldn't touch the inheritance legally, she'd try to poison my reputation until I had no ground left. When I stepped out into the staff parking lot that evening, Amma was waiting in her car. She rolled down the window. "They moved already, didn't they?" I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "They called my job. They're trying to paint me as a fraud." Amma's eyes sharpened. "Good. That means they're desperate. Desperation makes mistakes. We'll use their mistakes." 2 days later, another strike came. My landlord slid an eviction notice under my door, claiming I had missed 2 months' rent. I stared at the paper in disbelief. I had receipts of every payment. Amma sifted through the documents with quick fingers. "This is fake," she said, shaking her head. "They're trying to smoke you out of your home." "Who even does this?" I cried, my voice cracking. "They're rich already. Why chase me like this?" Amma placed a hand on my shoulder. "Because rivers remind crocodiles they cannot control the flow forever. Patricia has built her life controlling every coin around her. You are proof that her grip is slipping. That terrifies her more than poverty." By the end of the week, the attacks grew sharper. Anonymous emails reached the clinic board, accusing me of negligence. Rumors whispered through church pews that I married Jordan for money. Old friends avoided my calls. It was a coordinated flood. But Amma fought back. She filed official fraud complaints with the trust's security team. She delivered copies of forged receipts to investigators, and at night she coached me through every lie with her calm, unwavering voice. "Stand tall, Maya," she'd say. "When truth walks slowly, lies run fast, but lies tire first." Still, the hardest part was Jordan. He called twice. The first time I couldn't answer. I was too angry, too afraid I'd hear Patricia's words in his mouth. The second time, he left a voicemail. His voice cracked. "Maya, please, I don't know what's happening. Mom keeps saying you're planning to leave me, that you've turned against us. I don't believe it, but I don't know what to do anymore. Please call me." My heart twisted. I wanted to believe him, but the shadow of that wire transfer and the threatening text hung between us. Was he truly innocent, or was he simply playing a softer role in his mother's game? Amma warned me, "You must decide soon whether Jordan is a husband or a spy. You cannot fight both crocodiles and the man in your canoe." The breaking point came one Saturday morning. I returned from grocery shopping to find a sleek black SUV parked near my apartment. Two men in suits stood by the door. One held a clipboard. "Mrs. Banks?" one asked politely. "It's Okafor Banks," I said, wary. "We're here on behalf of the Banks family office," he continued smoothly. "We're conducting a courtesy review of your assets. Please sign this acknowledgement so we can proceed." He held out a document stamped with the Banks crest. The words blurred, but I caught the key phrase, "Temporary surrender of oversight rights." I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "You're kidding." "Not at all," he said, smiling. "It's routine." Amma appeared behind me, her braids gleaming in the sun. "Routine fraud, you mean?" she said coldly. She stepped between us, her presence filling the space like a shield. "If you don't leave in 30 seconds, I'll call the trust investigators directly, and the police." The men exchanged a look, then slipped back into the SUV without another word. The engine roared and they vanished down the street. I turned to Amma, my knees weak. "They're escalating." She nodded grimly. "Yes, and that means the storm is near its peak." That night, I sat by my window, staring at the city lights. For weeks, Patricia and her army had tried to drown me through forged signatures, poisoned rumors, and now open intimidation. But through it all, my grandfather's words echoed louder than ever. Freedom with a boundary. The boundary was clear now. Patricia would never stop until she either controlled me or destroyed me. I pressed the envelope to my chest. "Grandpa," I whispered, "you knew. You knew they'd come for me. But you also knew I'd have to choose how to fight." And I realized then, the real battle wasn't only about money. It was about identity. About whether I would let the Banks family rewrite my story, or write it myself. The decision formed in my chest like steel. I would not bow. I would not break. I would not let crocodiles take what was never theirs. Viewers, let me pause here for a moment. If you've been following this story, tell me, what would you do if your in-laws tried to sabotage your entire life over money? Would you fight back in court, or would you walk away with your freedom? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and while you're at it, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next chapter of this story. Like this video, share it with your friends, and let's see how far we can take this folktale together. Because trust me, the storm is just beginning. The storm finally touched the one place I had been praying it wouldn't, my marriage. For weeks, Patricia and her army had struck from outside. Forged documents, fake complaints, lies whispered into the wind. But now, the poison crept into my home. It began with a simple knock on my door one Sunday evening. I opened it to find Jordan standing there, no suit, no polished smile, just jeans, a wrinkled shirt, and a face that carried more exhaustion than sleep could fix. "Maya," he said, his voice low, "please, let me in." I hesitated. Amma, who had been reading through stacks of trust papers at my dining table, lifted her head, her eyes locked on Jordan like a guard dog watching a stranger. "Let him speak," she said quietly, "but keep your river calm." I stepped aside and Jordan entered. The apartment smelled of stew simmering on the stove, but the air between us was cold. He looked around, his eyes landing on Amma's notebooks and the files spread like battle plans. "So it's true," he said softly. "She really sent you." Amma didn't blink. "Your mother's lies made me necessary." Jordan winced at the word mother. He turned to me, his voice breaking. "Maya, I swear, I didn't send those texts. I didn't authorize that wire. I've been caught between you and her, and it's tearing me apart. But I need you to believe me. I'm not your enemy." I folded my arms, my heart warring with my mind. "Then explain this." I slid the receipt across the table, the fraudulent transfer with my signature. Jordan's hands shook as he picked it up. "I've never seen this before. Mom, she has access to everything. She could have—" His voice cracked. "Maya, you know me. You know I wouldn't steal from you." My chest ached. I wanted to believe him. But I remembered the way he had sat silent in that boardroom, letting Patricia speak for him. The way he hadn't followed me when I walked out. Silence is also a language. Amma's voice cut through the air. "Love makes rivers gentle, but even gentle rivers drown when they flow without banks. Jordan, if you truly stand with Maya, prove it." He looked up, his eyes red. "How?" "Break with your mother," Amma said simply. "Stand in public and say the money is Maya's alone. Say she owes nothing to the Banks family. Do that, and maybe she'll believe you again." The room went still. Jordan's lips parted, but no sound came out. "Do you hear her silence, Maya?" Amma said, her gaze never leaving him. "That is the weight of his choice. He cannot serve two masters." Jordan's shoulders slumped. "You're asking me to betray my own blood." "No," Amma corrected gently. "We are asking you to be a husband before you are a son." The words landed heavy. He looked at me, pleading. "Maya, please, don't make me choose like this." Tears stung my eyes. "Jordan, your mother already made the choice for you the moment she forged my name, the moment she tried to ruin me at my job. She chose war. Now you must choose peace, or join her in the fight." That night, Jordan left without giving me an answer. The days that followed blurred together. At work, people whispered behind my back, the false fraud complaint still haunting the halls. At church, the pews felt colder. Neighbors who once waved avoided my eyes. Patricia's shadow was everywhere, and then came the betrayal that shattered whatever faith I still had in Jordan. One Wednesday morning, Amma rushed into my apartment, her phone in hand. "Maya," she said, her voice urgent, "you need to see this." She showed me a video clip posted on social media. My blood froze. It was Jordan, my husband, standing beside Patricia at a press conference. He wore a clean navy suit, his face calm but unreadable. Patricia's voice rang clear. "The Banks family stands united. We are committed to safeguarding all assets connected to our name. My son Jordan has signed a statement affirming that his wife, Maya, has entrusted us with temporary oversight of her inheritance. This is not about control but protection. We love Maya as one of us, and together we will ensure her legacy is secure." The crowd clapped, cameras flashed, and then Jordan stepped forward, nodding in agreement. He didn't say much, just one sentence that felt like a knife twisting in my back. "I believe my family's guidance is best for my wife," he said. Amma paused the video. The silence in my apartment screamed louder than words. I sank into a chair, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. He sided with her. He chose her over me. Amma crouched in front of me, her eyes steady. "No. He chose fear, and fear is not love." My hands shook as I buried my face in them. All the late nights we spent dreaming of a life together, all the laughter, all the prayers, it collapsed in a single moment on a stage I wasn't even on. The press conference set off a firestorm. News outlets began running stories about the Banks family's $80 million windfall. Strangers on social media speculated about me. Was I a gold digger? A nurse who married rich? A girl too small for the wealth dropped in her lap? The weight of the world pressed on my chest. I couldn't breathe, but Amma kept me upright. "We will answer this in our way," she said. "Not with cameras, but with truth. Patricia may own the microphones, but you, Maya, you own the river. And rivers write their own paths." That evening, Mr. Alvarez brought fresh news. "Maya, the trust investigators traced the fraudulent wire attempt. The login used a device registered under Patricia Banks's office. We have enough to file charges. But here's the twist. The system also flagged Jordan's credentials. His name is now tied to the fraud, even if he didn't authorize it." I swallowed hard. So either he's guilty, or she's framing him too. Amma's eyes narrowed. Patricia is willing to sacrifice even her son to keep control. That makes her more dangerous than we thought. The next morning, I received another letter. This one slid under my door in a crisp envelope, stamped with the Banks crest. Inside, the words were short and sharp. "You have 1 week to reconsider. If you continue down this path, you will not only lose your marriage, you will lose everything else you love. Choose wisely." My hands trembled as I read. They weren't just coming for the money anymore. They were coming for my life. Viewers, let me ask you, what would you do if your own spouse stood beside their family while they tried to strip you of your freedom? Could you still trust them, or would you walk away? Comment your thoughts below. I want to hear your perspective. And if you haven't already, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends. The next chapter will reveal whether I fight for my marriage or whether the Banks family finally pushes me too far. Because one thing is certain, this battle is about to explode. The letter from Patricia lay on the table, its words pulsing in my head like a drum beat. "You will lose everything you love." Amma picked it up with 2 fingers, as if it were contaminated. "Threats," she muttered. "The last refuge of people who think they are gods." She tore it neatly in half and dropped the pieces into the trash. "We'll answer this another way." But I wasn't so sure. Patricia had power, connections, and now the image of Jordan standing beside her at that press conference. The world believed her story, that she was the gracious matriarch protecting her foolish daughter-in-law. And me? I was just a nurse with a target on my back. That night, I sat by the window with my grandfather's letter spread out again, tracing the words with my finger. "Money is a seed. Plant it where you can return to shade." Seeds. Shade. It clicked. Patricia wanted to control the tree before it could grow, but my grandfather wanted me to plant it somewhere else. Somewhere she couldn't reach. "Amma," I said suddenly. "What if I don't fight her on her battlefield at all? What if I plant this money somewhere that starves her of control?" Amma's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "Go on." "My grandfather's trust isn't just money, it's businesses, warehouses, cocoa farms, clinics. If we shift attention from the banks to the communities, if we invest visibly in people she can't intimidate, then even if she controls the headlines, she won't control the truth." A slow smile spread across Amma's face. "Now you're thinking like your grandfather." The next morning I requested a private meeting with Mr. Alvarez. We met in his quiet office, far from Patricia's glittering towers. "I want to redirect," I told him. "Start funding projects immediately. Clinics, scholarships, community centers. Not through the Banks family name, through my grandfather's foundation." He nodded. "That's possible. Risky, but possible. It will enrage Patricia." "Good," I said. "Let her rage. Let her see that her claws can't reach everyone." Word spread fast. Within 2 weeks, the first clinic renovations began in Accra. Photos appeared online of children holding new books stamped with the Okafor Foundation's seal. Scholarships were announced for nurses, teachers, and farmers' children. Patricia's narrative cracked. People saw me not as a gold digger, but as a builder. But Patricia struck back harder. One Monday morning, my landlord stormed up to my door, waving papers. "You're 3 months behind, Maya. Pack your things." "I'm not," I said firmly, handing him proof of every transfer. "And if you keep harassing me, I'll take this to court." His face faltered. He muttered something about orders from above before shuffling away. Orders from above. Patricia again. The next day at the clinic, I was called into a disciplinary meeting. "We've received reports of you leaking patient information," the director said grimly. I slammed my folder of documents on the table. "Then investigate. Every shift, every chart. I have nothing to hide." Behind his stiff expression, I saw doubt flicker. Patricia's lies were loud, but my truth had receipts. Amma, meanwhile, dug deeper into the Banks family finances. Late one night, she spread papers across my living room floor. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a column of numbers. "Patricia's empire is not as clean as she claims. Many of their holdings are leveraged, mortgaged, some even defaulting." I blinked. "You mean they're broke?" "Not broke," Amma said carefully, "but fragile. If one major investor pulls out, the whole house of cards could collapse. That's why Patricia is desperate to fold your inheritance into their office. She doesn't want to protect you. She wants to rescue herself." The revelation hit me like thunder. Patricia's power wasn't limitless. It was borrowed, and borrowed power always comes with interest. The next weekend, I received another blow. Jordan showed up again, this time not at my apartment, but at the clinic where I worked. He waited outside until my shift ended, his eyes hollow. "Maya," he said, "please hear me. I didn't know about the press conference until the last minute." She shoved the statement in my hand. "I thought if I didn't go along, she'd—" His voice cracked. "She threatened to ruin you. To ruin us. I thought I was protecting you." I stared at him, my chest aching. Protecting me? By standing beside the woman trying to destroy me? His shoulders slumped. I was weak. I see that now. "But please, Maya, don't shut me out. I'm still your husband. I still love you." Amma's words rang in my ears. "He cannot serve two masters." "Then prove it," I said, my voice sharp. "Stand with me publicly. Tell the world Patricia lied. Until then, Jordan, I don't know who you are anymore." Tears filled his eyes, but he said nothing. He just turned and walked away. The next morning, Amma received a tip from one of her old contacts. She slammed a folder onto the table, her eyes blazing. "Maya, you need to see this. Patricia has been diverting funds from the Banks Foundation into private accounts overseas. She's been covering it with false reports. If this gets out, her reputation, her entire empire, will crumble." I flipped through the document. I whispered, "What if building means destroying Patricia? What if it means destroying Jordan too?" Amma leaned closer, her eyes sharp. "Then you ask yourself this. Do you owe loyalty to a husband who stood silent while his mother attacked you? Or do you owe loyalty to the people your grandfather wanted you to shelter, the children, the families, the communities? Who deserves your river more?" Her words stung because they were true. That week, I returned to church for the first time in months. Whispers trailed me down the aisle. "There she is, the one with the inheritance. Did you hear she's fighting the Banks family?" I lifted my head anyway, forcing myself to meet every stare. After service, Cousin Nia cornered me in the courtyard. She snapped her gum, eyes darting around. "Maya," she said, lowering her voice, "I know Aunt Patricia's been coming for you, but let me tell you something. Half this family is tired of her too." I blinked. "Then why don't you speak up?" She smirked. "Because no one wants to be cut off from the money tree. But if that tree's rotten," she shrugged, "people might switch sides." I studied her face. Was this another trap? Or the first crack in Patricia's fortress? Before I could answer, Auntie Denise approached, her heels clicking on the pavement. "Nia," she said sharply, "go wait in the car." Nia rolled her eyes, but obeyed. Denise turned to me with a smile too sweet to trust. Maya, dear, family quarrels are like Harmattan winds. They pass. Why don't you come back to the table? Sign the oversight letter. Let Patricia handle things. It will save you grief. I stared at her, then let my voice drop to a whisper. What if I told you Patricia is stealing from the family she claims to protect? For the first time, Denise's smile cracked. That's a dangerous lie. Not a lie, I said calmly. Documents, offshore accounts, false reports. I leaned closer. If the cousins knew, how long would Patricia's crown last? Denise's eyes flickered. She smoothed her scarf and walked away without another word. Amma's voice echoed in my head. Turn their allies against them. 2 days later, Amma arranged a quiet meeting with 3 Banks cousins at a small cafe in Midtown. They came in nervous, glancing around as though Patricia herself might appear. I laid the documents on the table. This is what your mother, your aunt, your matriarch has been hiding. The empire isn't as strong as you think. She's been bleeding it dry for years. The cousins studied the papers, their faces shifting from disbelief to horror. One whispered, "If this gets out, the family office is finished." I met their eyes. Help me protect what's mine, and I'll help you rebuild. My grandfather's trust is clean. If we join hands, we can start something new, something not built on lies. Silence stretched. Then one cousin nodded slowly. Another followed. The third hesitated, then whispered, "If Patricia finds out we were here, she will," I said. "But by then, it will be too late." Meanwhile, Patricia struck again. A notice arrived at my clinic job. This time, not a complaint, but a suspension. Pending investigation, the letter read. I had been officially removed from the roster. I collapsed into a chair, my hands shaking. My job had been my anchor, the one piece of normalcy left. Now it was gone. Amma knelt beside me. This is her pattern. Strip you of stability. Make you desperate enough to crawl back. But listen to me, Maya. This is also your turning point. A river that overflows its banks may flood, but it also clears new paths. Her words steadied me. I would not crawl. The next evening, Amma received another tip. She rushed into my apartment, her braids swinging. "Maya," she said breathlessly, "you won't believe this. Patricia has been using church funds, donations meant for missions, to cover her offshore debts." I froze. "If that's true, it's worse than fraud," Amma cut in. "It's sacrilege. If the congregation finds out, her name will be mud in every pew from Atlanta to Accra." We both knew what this meant. The perfect weapon. Patricia thrived on her image as a devout matriarch, the pearl-wearing saint of Sunday service. If the truth came out, she wouldn't just lose her empire, she'd lose her throne. But again, the cost was Jordan. His name was tied to those church boards too. If Patricia fell, he would fall with her. The following Sunday, I sat in the church balcony, hidden among the crowd. Patricia walked in, wearing a cream suit and pearls, her Bible clutched like a trophy. Jordan walked beside her, head down. The congregation stood as they entered. I gripped the folder of evidence in my lap. I could walk down right then, hand it to the pastor, and end her reign in one blow. The power was mine. Amma leaned toward me, whispering, "This is your moment. The crocodile is in shallow water. Strike now, and she cannot escape." I rose halfway from my seat, then stopped. My eyes landed on Jordan. His shoulders slumped, his face tired, his soul torn in half. Could I destroy his mother knowing it would drag him down too? Could I watch the man I once loved drown, even if he had chosen silence? My hand shook as I clutched the folder. Freedom with a boundary. The question thundered inside me, was the boundary love or justice? And that's where I'll leave this chapter. Viewers, I need to ask you directly, if you had the evidence to end Patricia once and for all, but it meant destroying your husband's name in the process, what would you do? Would you strike or would you hold back? Drop your answers in the comments. I want to hear every perspective. And don't forget, subscribe, like this video, and share it. The next chapter will show whether I choose love, justice, or something else entirely, because rivers don't stay still forever. And mine was about to flood. The folder burned a hole in my lap all through the Sunday service. I didn't hand it to the pastor. I didn't march to the altar. I sat still, my heart pounding, as Patricia lifted her head high and sang hymns as if her empire wasn't rotting beneath her feet. But silence doesn't hold forever. By Monday morning, the flood had already begun, without me. Amma burst into my apartment at dawn, holding her phone. "Maya, turn on the news." I fumbled for the remote. The screen flickered to a local channel. A reporter stood outside the Banks family office tower, her voice sharp. "Shocking allegations have emerged against Patricia Banks and the Banks family office. Sources within the church reveal funds intended for missions were diverted to cover personal debts and overseas accounts. Documents leaked late last night suggest millions of dollars were misused." The camera cut to a grainy image of the very receipts Amma had uncovered, now plastered across every screen in Atlanta. My breath caught. "Amma? I didn't leak those." Amma's lips curved in a small smile. "No, but someone else did. Remember Cousin Nia? You planted a seed in her ear. Seeds grow." I sank into the couch, trembling. Patricia's face flashed on the screen, storming past cameras, refusing to answer questions. Behind her, Jordan walked quickly, his hand shielding his face. The crocodile was thrashing in shallow water now. By noon, the fallout was everywhere. Parishioners protested outside the Banks church. Donors pulled their money. Politicians distanced themselves. Patricia's name, once a golden crown, now carried mud. But the storm hit my marriage hardest. That evening, Jordan showed up at my apartment again. He looked broken, eyes bloodshot, tie loosened, the weight of a crumbling dynasty dragging on his shoulders. "You did this," he whispered. I stood tall. "No, your mother did this. I only showed the truth to people who deserve to know." His fists clenched at his sides. "Do you have any idea what you've done? The banks are freezing accounts. Our businesses are collapsing. And now the whole city sees us as thieves." "Us?" I shot back. "Don't say us, Jordan. I didn't steal from churches. I didn't forge signatures. I didn't try to ruin your wife's life. That was your family." His voice cracked. "They're still my blood." I stepped closer, my own tears stinging. "And what am I? A stranger? You let your mother humiliate me, sabotage me, lie about me, and when it mattered most, you stood by her side." He swallowed hard, his voice barely audible. "I was trying to protect you." "No, Jordan," I said, shaking my head. "You were trying to protect her." Silence hung heavy between us. "Finally," he whispered, "if you love me, don't let this destroy my family." I stared at him for a long moment. Then I said the words I had been holding back for weeks. "Jordan, I love the man I met by that food truck. I don't love the man who let his mother use him as her shield. Until you decide who you are, I can't stand beside you." His face crumpled. Without another word, he turned and walked out. This time I didn't follow. The next days were chaos. Patricia faced public outcry. Investigators swarmed her office. Church leaders demanded resignations. Her empire cracked in every corner. But Patricia wasn't finished. She called a press conference at a downtown hotel. Amma insisted we go to see what new trick she would try. We stood at the back of the ballroom as Patricia took the stage, dressed in black, her pearls gleaming under the lights. "My family has served this community for decades," she said, her voice steady despite the storm outside. "Yes, mistakes were made. But let us not be distracted from the real betrayal, by a woman who married into our name only to tear it apart. Maya Okafor Banks has waged war on her own husband's family. She leaked documents. She orchestrated lies. She is no victim. She is the architect of this chaos." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cameras swung toward me, catching my face. I lifted my chin, refusing to flinch. But inside, my heart raced. Patricia had turned her final weapon on me, public shame. Then, in a move that stunned everyone, Patricia reached for Jordan's hand and pulled him forward. "My son," she said, her voice sharp, "tell them the truth." All eyes turned to him. Jordan's hand shook in his mother's grip. He stared at the crowd, at the cameras, at me. His lips parted, and in that moment I knew he would either save me or he would bury me. Viewers, let me pause here and ask you directly. If you were in Jordan's shoes, standing between loyalty to your mother and truth for your wife, what would you do? Would you defend blood at all costs, or would you finally break free? Comment below. I need to hear your voices. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Because in the next chapter, Jordan makes his choice, and it changes everything. The ballroom was heavy with silence. Every breath from the crowd held tight as Jordan stood between his mother and me. Patricia's hand gripped his arm like a chain, her smile wide for the cameras, her eyes daring him to disobey. "Maya has betrayed us," Patricia repeated, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "Tell them, son. Tell them the truth." Jordan's lips parted. He looked at the cameras, then at the audience. But when his eyes finally found mine at the back of the room, time slowed. His face told the story of a man torn apart, loyalty pulling him one way, love pulling him the other. I shook my head slowly, not in anger, not in pleading, just a silent message. Choose your own soul, Jordan. Not hers, not mine, yours. He swallowed hard, and for a moment I feared he'd bend again, that Patricia's shadow would cover him like it always did. But then he did something no one expected. He pulled his arm free. "No," he said, his voice trembling but loud enough to echo through the hall. "Mom, I can't do this anymore." Patricia froze, her hand suspended in the air where his arm had been. The crowd gasped. Cameras zoomed closer. Jordan stepped forward, his voice gaining strength. "The truth is, my wife didn't betray this family. You did." The room erupted. "You forged her signature. You tried to take what wasn't yours. You used church money to cover debts, and I stood by you because I was afraid of losing your approval, afraid of losing my family. But all along, I was losing the only person who ever truly loved me for who I am." His voice broke, but he pressed on. "Maya, I'm sorry. I should have defended you from the beginning. I failed you. But today, I choose you." The ballroom shook with chaos. Reporters shouted questions. Flashbulbs popped like fireworks. Patricia's face twisted into something I'd never seen, rage, pure and raw. "You ungrateful boy," she hissed, her voice carrying even without a microphone. "Everything you have is because of me. Your name, your life, your place in this city. Mine, and you throw it away for her." Jordan stood tall. "No, Mother. I throw away the lies, the control, the chains. If that means I lose everything, so be it. At least I'll have my soul back." The crowd roared. Some cheered, others whispered. But the spell Patricia had woven for decades shattered in that instant. She had lost her golden son, the shield she had used against the world. That night, headlines blazed across every screen. Banks' empire in crisis. Son turns against matriarch. Jordan Banks defends wife amid fraud allegations. Patricia Banks faces possible indictments. For the first time since the storm began, I felt air in my lungs again. Amma clasped my hand. "The crocodile has been wounded, but remember, wounded crocodiles thrash hardest." She was right. Patricia didn't vanish quietly. 2 days later, a subpoena arrived at my door. Patricia's lawyers had filed suit against me for defamation, breach of marital trust, and intentional sabotage of family business. The number attached: $50 million in damages. I laughed bitterly when I read it. "She's trying to scare me into silence." Amma nodded. "Yes, but she forgets. You don't swim alone anymore. The cousins are turning. The church is turning. And now even her son has turned." That evening, Jordan came to my apartment again. This time there was no press, no cameras, no stage, just the two of us in the dim light of my living room. "I meant what I said," he whispered. "I choose you. I'll stand with you against her, even if it costs me everything." Tears blurred my vision. Jordan, I wanted to hear those words months ago. I know, he said, his voice heavy with regret. I was weak. I thought keeping the peace meant keeping silent, but silence only fed her. I see that now. He reached for my hand. I don't expect forgiveness overnight, but let me fight for you. Let me fight with you. I hesitated. My heart remembered every wound, every moment of silence that cut deeper than words. But it also remembered the boy at the food truck, the man who laughed with me under the rain, the husband who once prayed beside me. I don't know if I can trust you fully again, I whispered. Then let me earn it, he said simply. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. Patricia's empire unraveled piece by piece as investigators uncovered more fraud. Her loyalists scattered, desperate to save themselves. The cousins who once smirked at me now sent quiet messages of support. Even Auntie Denise called one evening, her voice low. Maya, we were wrong about you, she admitted. You are stronger than any of us. But Patricia herself refused to bow. From her mansion, she released statement after statement, calling me a snake, a traitor, a witch who had bewitched her son. The press ate it up, but fewer people believed her with each passing day. Amma leaned over her notes one night and smiled faintly. She is drowning, Maya, and soon you won't have to lift a finger. The current will carry her away. Yet the battle wasn't only about Patricia anymore. It was about what came next. The inheritance was still mine, untouched by the Banks family. The clinics in Ghana thrived. Scholarships had begun to roll out. But I knew my grandfather's test wasn't just about surviving Patricia. It was about proving I could plant the seed he left me, not let it rot in fear. Jordan stood in my kitchen one evening, washing dishes with a clumsy tenderness. So what happens now? He asked. I looked at him, then at the letter still pinned to my fridge. Plant it where you can return to shade. Now, I said slowly, we build something she can't destroy. Viewers, tell me, if you were in my place, would you forgive Jordan for standing silent so long, or would you start fresh on your own? Can love survive betrayal when truth finally wins? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear from you. And if you've been following this story, make sure to subscribe, like this video and share it with friends. Because in the final chapter, everything comes to a head. Patricia's last desperate move, and the decision that will define not just my inheritance but my future. Because rivers can destroy, but they can also give life. Patricia Banks was not the type to vanish quietly. For months, she had ruled her family, her church, and half the city with the precision of a queen on her throne. Even with her empire cracking, she still had one card left to play, and she intended to use it. It came on a Thursday morning. Amma burst into my apartment with the newspaper in her hand, her eyes blazing. Maya, she said, slamming the front page on the table. I read the headline and felt my blood run cold. Patricia Banks files motion to void granddaughter's inheritance, claims fraudulent will. Beneath it was my picture, printed next to Patricia's. The article quoted her lawyers. The so-called inheritance left to Maya Okafor was built on false documents. We believe the trust was manipulated to exclude rightful heirs, Amma hissed through her teeth. She's trying to erase you completely. If this motion passes, the trust could be frozen indefinitely. I sat heavily in the chair. Patricia's final weapon wasn't intimidation or public shame. It was the law itself. The courtroom was packed the day of the hearing. Reporters lined the benches, cameras waiting outside. Patricia entered first, dressed in deep navy with her pearls gleaming like armor. She carried herself as though she still owned the world. Jordan walked in after her, but this time he sat on my side of the aisle. The shift sent ripples through the crowd. When the judge entered, silence fell. Patricia's lawyer rose first. Your Honor, he said smoothly, this entire trust is suspect. There are questions about authenticity. My client's late father could not have intended to cut out his entire bloodline. Then Mr. Alvarez rose, calm and steady as always. Your Honor, the trust is ironclad. The documents are verified internationally. The attempts to forge signatures, to transfer funds illegally, those are the real frauds, committed not by my client, but by the Banks family office. He handed the judge a folder. Inside were all the receipts Amma had uncovered, proof of offshore accounts, proof of stolen church money, proof of Patricia's hand in the fraud. The judge flipped through, her expression unreadable. Patricia's face tightened, but she didn't break. Not yet. Then Amma stood. She wasn't a lawyer, but she was my protector, and the judge allowed her testimony. "Your Honor," she said, her voice steady, "I worked with the late Mr. Okafor for years. I carried water for him when no one else would. These papers were his last wish, and his granddaughter is the rightful heir. The only fraud here is the attempt to steal from her." For the first time, Patricia's mask cracked, her lips pressed thin, her fingers tightening around her pearl necklace. The judge finally spoke. "I have reviewed the evidence. The trust stands as written. The motion is denied." The gavel struck. Gasps filled the room. Patricia's shoulders sagged, the weight of defeat finally pressing down. Her lawyers gathered her papers in silence. It was over. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, microphones shoved into my face. "Maya, how do you feel about the ruling? Will you forgive the Banks family? What happens now?" I took a deep breath, remembering my grandfather's words. "Money is a seed. Plant it where you can return to shade." "I will honor my grandfather's legacy," I said clearly. "This inheritance isn't just about wealth. It's about responsibility. Clinics will be built. Children will be educated. Communities will thrive. This money will not be wasted on power games. It will serve." The crowd erupted in questions, but I held my head high. For the first time, the story wasn't about Patricia's empire. It was about mine. Patricia vanished from public life in the weeks that followed. Her name became a cautionary tale. Her pearl-clad image, a memory of power, turned to dust. The church stripped her of titles. The family office collapsed. Cousins who once sneered at me now scrambled to find footing without her. And Jordan, he kept coming back, helping where he could, standing beside me in meetings, bringing me tea after long nights. One evening, as we sat on the balcony watching the city lights, he finally spoke what had lingered between us. "Maya," he whispered, "do I still have a place in your shade?" I looked at him long and hard. I remembered his silence, his weakness, but I also remembered his courage in the ballroom, the moment he broke from Patricia's grip. Rivers remember both drought and rain. "You have a place," I said softly, "but you must help me build the shade, not hide in it." His hand found mine. For the first time in months, I didn't pull away. Years later, when the first Okafor clinic opened its doors, children ran through hallways painted with bright murals. Women received free healthcare. Students won scholarships. The seed my grandfather left me had grown into a forest of shade. At the entrance hung a plaque with his words engraved, "Freedom with a boundary, money is a seed." And beneath it another line was added in my own hand, "The river belongs to those who dare to flow." Viewers, that concludes this story, but I'll leave you with a question. If you were in my shoes, would you have shown Patricia mercy when she fell, or would you have delivered the finishing blow? What does true victory look like? Winning in court, or building something greater than revenge? Drop your answers in the comments and let's talk about it. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it with your friends. More stories are on the way. Because as my grandfather taught me, rivers never stop flowing,